African American male, our kings. The whole world is watching.
And indeed, the entire world is watching our African American males. So hi, this is Dr. Lana coming to you a second day with video on interpersonal communications of Native African American people. And today I will be presenting and giving tribute to the Native African American male, our kings, our kings. And so who are these Native African American males that the entire world is watching? Well, according to Dr. King, these Native African American males are descendants of slaves, heirs of the past of rope, fire, and murder, but he said that he was not ashamed of this past, but only for those who became so inhuman that they could inflict this torture upon us. And I truly believe today that this is the conviction of our Native African American males who come from all walks of life, careers, educational backgrounds, and socio-economic levels. Now tell me, if you are non-Native African American, and if I ask you to describe the personality, characteristics, and traits of an African American male, would you be able to do that? Or would you have to rely on what you see on the media, what you've been told? Do you know how Native African American males think? Do you know how Native African Americans feel about life? What do Native African Americans males value? What do they like or dislike? How do they view this world around them that they go about from day to day? How do they interact with the people around them? Would you define them as aggressive, friendly, giving, or stingy? Are they introverts or are they extroverts? What are their speech patterns like? How do they walk? 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 Well, they have a unique walk. They have a unique walk. Will I say that again? Let's go back to how they walk. Well, many black males have a special walk, often much like the ancestors that they inherited from in Africa. And I say, and I believe everybody would agree with me, that there is no walk in the world comparable to that of the Native African American male's walk. Some cultures have tried to mimic it, but it doesn't compare. But you see, most Native African American males have a unique walk. Oh, that catches the eye. And it's no wonder that almost every culture of women are drawn to them. It's all right. No wonder. Now, some African American males place value on being cool, which they are. Even with their much intelligence, they still carry a thing of coolness about them, while others don't. Some have it, some have it all. But besides the walk, African American males have also created a distinctive handshake that have been copied by many other cultures. But it's almost more special. It's just always more special seeing an African American male when they greet each other and do this handshake. Why do cultures copy the African American males? Well, simply because they are bad. B-A-D-D-D-D-D-D. They are bad. Now, I want to tell you what most African American males don't do. They literally don't do, contrary to popular society. Number one, they do not let society cause them to be low or have low self-esteem about themselves. No, they don't. Because if they had, they would not have survived as long as they have. Number two, they strive to keep high self-esteem and instill it in their children. Three, they try to negotiate their own self-concept that reinforces that image, that Wakanda image, regardless of what storm comes in their life. Number four, they strive to keep that image regardless of what groups they work with. Number five, they refuse to be caught up in a web of self-hate where they become victims. They realize that though they have been victimized, they are not victims. They are survivors, and so they walk in it. And the black male also have what is called the black male rituals. This is where they often use the slang, but most know when to use it and when not to use it, and who to use it around and who not to use it around. And they also do something called, in the old days, they used to call it playing the dozens or woofing, the woofing right. And so I'm not sure what it's called right now, but that's what it was called back then. And what this is an important manhood right in the black community where two males, they duel verbally. This has been portrayed in the movies, and what they do is they make derogatory comments about each other's family members, usually the mom. But I've also seen them doing this on the basketball courts where they woof or where they two with one another playing basketball, picking and insulting the skills of another player's performance. And so while they're doing this, each player is urged on with laughs from the other players. And I've heard some really funny insults as they play basketball. But this is called a manhood right because it serves as an important function for African American males. So here the male must master several important competencies in order to be a good player. And so he must control his emotions. That's number one. He must learn to control his emotions, and he must be able to react and think quickly and come back with a much more clever slur. And this is a verbal ritual that what it really does is it relieves the tension in lieu of a fight. And this is something that was also practiced by their ancestors. Yes, it was. Now, the Native African American male, what do they do when they have a relationship between Native African single moms and female relationships? Well, some Native African American males enter male and female relationships sometimes some with college or some with vocational training, and sometimes those with just high school education. Some enter with strong emotional or home skills, and some don't. Some anticipate that women will be loyal to them like their moms did, loving them unconditionally. But a lot of times it doesn't play out that way. And at the same time, some Native African American males who saw their moms as the breadwinner, or usually without a husband, maybe he died or whatever, they tend to be more aggressive, more educated, and more self-sufficient when it comes to emotions and their home skills. Now, I'm not saying that's not all the time. This is just generally speaking. And so most Native African American males, contrary to popular beliefs, are great parents. Don't forget that they are great parents. And I saw recent research on that, where African American males tend to take up a lot of time with their children. They're great parents and they're great spouses, and they work to make their home a great environment, contrary to the popular belief. African American males love their children, and they do take time with their children. They love to take time with their children. They like to play games with their children. They like to play basketball and do things, take their children to the movies. Yes, they do. And yes, they can. And so when it comes to dating and marrying, according to Black demographics of African American population in 2017, 85% of Black males, now I don't know whether this includes just African American males or Black males in general, 85% of them had a black spouse, and 9% had a white spouse, 3% had Hispanic spouse, and 3% other. But it's okay. It's okay, because if we are supposed to be loving one another, and if we all come from the same DNA with Adam and Eve, love whoever's going to love you back. That's what I say. That's what I say. Now, Native African American males, when they were growing up in the classrooms, as little boys, let's go way, way back, when some of our Native African American Wakanda men were little boys in the classroom. Traditional classrooms that have been orientated towards female values, especially those of white females. Native African American children often had difficulty in this time, especially of Native African American males, because the teachers were disproportionately females, and the behavior tolerated and encouraged in those classrooms, and sometimes even now, are those that are natural, more natural for females. And of course, this normally works against the Native African American male. And I remember when my son, my youngest son, was in the in first grade in kindergarten. I remember he had an Asian Indian Asian teacher, and she told me that he had a lot of energy, but she was not going to sit him down. She would not. She says, I let him run and I let him enjoy himself, and I let him just run and until he gets tired. And once he gets tired, then he performs the work, and he's very, very, very smart. And I really appreciated that. So let's look at mental health and physical health. Well, I hate to say it, but for some reason, Native African American males do not like to, they don't like going to the doctor, and they don't like going to counseling. In fact, many African American males get insulted when encouraged or asked to see counseling or to go to counseling, because their perception is that they are believed to be crazy or out of it if they are asked to go see a counselor. Now, they do understand that and as far as doctors are concerned, they really don't like going to doctors on a regular basis, like females do, or when females feel that they have a problem. Males, however, do understand that they tend to die at a disproportionately high rate from the females and from other cultures. They know that infant mortality among them are high compared to white Americans, and they know what the life expectancy is, and that is shorter. And one reason is because many Native African American males, as well as females, are not very trusting of doctors, as we know, especially dealing with the pandemic thing, or they feel that it is so inconvenient to take a trip to the doctor, and especially for Native African American males. The one big question: church. Do Native African American males go to church, or do they like going to church? Do they hang out at church? Well, according to Wanzu Kanshufu's Adam, Where Are You? book, most African American males or black men do not like to attend church. And here's why. Here's why. This is something that you can talk about. First, some of them think that there's a hypocrisy going on at church. The hypocrisy. And I won't say what that one is. Another one is the ego. They say that there's a dictatorship. They don't like hearing their wives always talking about the pastor said this and the pastor said that. They don't like hearing that. They say the church people are too passive. They refuse, and they always want to turn the other cheek, but they're not turning the other cheek, and so they don't like going. Tithing. Some of them ask the question, why is the biggest building on the street the church, and the person driving the best car the preacher and the drug dealer or the pimp? That's what they ask. Another one was the length of service. Church shouldn't take 3 hours. It shouldn't take 3 hours to have a church service, they think. Then others think that people get too emotional in church. One guy said that he got knocked in the mouth at 7 by his aunt shouting. While another one says that he wasn't going to miss his sports on Sundays. If they changed the time of the service, maybe he would come on Sundays, but not until they do that, because he was not going to miss his sports games. Some don't like wearing suits. Some don't like being judged because of what they're doing outside the church. And he says that some of the other races, the other religions seem to be more interested in them. And some finally said that church was long and it was boring. And so I don't want to be too long on here, because I know tensions get very short when you watch a long film. So I'm going to wrap this up for today, and I'll come back the next day with some more things. So I'm just going to say a final word for today, and that is for Native African American males. I want you to remember that what you do has a stronger impact than what you say. Always remember that. Always remember that in your relationships and in your homes, in communicating, we hear what we want to hear. And what's important is listening skills. Very important. Everything we do 24/7 has to do with communication, even when you're dreaming at night. Don't call somebody else's name. If you're having a nightmare, that's communication. But just remember to be good to each other and be good to your family. We love you, African American males. Keep doing what you're doing. See you later.